My son was crying in pain, clutching his stomach, and I knew immediately appendicitis. I rushed him to the ER, called my family begging them to come, and my mother said, "I have a hair appointment. Don't be so dramatic." 2 hours later, I watched my baby go into surgery completely alone. That was the moment everything changed, because 3 days after that, they had the audacity to ask me for something that made my blood run cold. I am Rebecca. I'm 34 years old, a single mother working in finance, and I have a beautiful 7-year-old son named Mason. Last Wednesday started like any normal morning until everything fell apart. And 3 days later, after sitting alone in a hospital room while my son fought through emergency surgery, I received a text message that made my blood run cold. But before I tell you how my own family betrayed me in the worst possible way, and then had the audacity to demand $10,000 from me, I need you to understand how we got here. Have you ever been the person everyone turns to when they need help? But the moment you need them, they all disappear? Hit that like button if you know exactly what I'm talking about. And stay with me, because what happened next will shock you. That Wednesday morning, I was in my kitchen making Mason's lunch. Turkey sandwich with no crusts, apple slices, and his favorite chocolate chip cookie. It was our routine. My son walked in, and immediately I knew something was wrong. His face was pale, almost gray, and he was clutching his stomach. "Mommy," he whispered, tears forming in his eyes. "My tummy really hurts. At first I thought maybe it was a stomach bug. There had been one going around his second-grade class." I felt his forehead, no fever. I gave him some water and told him to sit down. But within 20 minutes, Mason was curled up on the couch, crying in a way I had never heard before. The pain was getting worse, concentrated on his right side. My heart started racing. Right side abdominal pain? I work in finance, not medicine, but I'm a mother, and mothers know. Appendicitis. The word flashed in my mind like a warning light. I didn't hesitate for even a second. I grabbed my phone, called my boss, told her I had a family emergency, scooped Mason into my arms, and drove straight to the emergency room. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Mason was crying softly in the back seat, asking me if he was going to be okay. "You're going to be fine, baby," I told him, though my voice was trembling. "Mommy's taking care of you." The ER triage nurse took one look at my son and immediately brought us back. No waiting room, no forms to fill out first. That's when I knew this was serious. Within an hour, a doctor came in. Young guy, probably in his 30s, with kind eyes. His name tag read, "Dr. Bennett." "Mrs. Carter," he said gently. "Your instincts were correct. Mason has acute appendicitis. We need to operate within the next 2 hours to remove his appendix before it ruptures. The good news is this is a very common procedure, but he will need to stay in the hospital for at least 2 to 3 days afterward so we can monitor for infection." The room started spinning. Surgery. My baby needed surgery. "Is he going to be okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "He's going to be just fine," Dr. Bennett assured me. "But we need to move quickly. The surgical team is being prepped right now." As they began preparing Mason for pre-op testing, wheeling him down the hallway in a bed that looked way too big for his small body, I stepped into the corridor and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. I called my mother first. "Mom," I said when she answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's Mason. He has appendicitis. We're at Memorial Hospital right now. They're prepping him for emergency surgery within the next 2 hours. Mom, I'm terrified. Can you and Dad please come?" There was a pause on the other end. A long pause. Then my mother's voice came through, and I will never forget the tone. "Oh, honey, today. I have my standing hair appointment at 11, and your father was planning to clean out the gutters. It's been on the calendar for weeks." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "Mom," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Your grandson is having emergency surgery. The hair appointment can wait. The gutters can wait. Please, I need you here." Another pause. "Well, let me talk to your father and see what we can figure out." "What time did you say the surgery was?" "Within the next 2 hours. Please hurry. We'll see what we can do, Rebecca. Don't be so dramatic. Appendectomies are routine these days. Thousands of people get them. He'll be fine." She hung up. I stood there in that hospital hallway staring at my phone, feeling something crack inside my chest. But I didn't have time to process it. I had to get back to Mason. Next, I called my younger sister Amanda. It went straight to voicemail. I left a message, my voice shaking. Amanda, it's Becca. Mason has appendicitis. He's having emergency surgery at Memorial Hospital. Please, if you get this, can you come? I really need someone here. Then I sent her a text with the same information. No response. I walked back into Mason's room. He was lying on the bed, looking so small and scared, an IV already in his little arm. When he saw me, he tried to smile. Mommy, are Grandma and Grandpa coming? I forced myself to smile back. They're trying, sweetie. They're going to try really hard. But deep down, I already knew. They weren't coming. The next few hours were the longest of my life. Mason was taken into surgery, and I was directed to a waiting area. Have you ever been in a hospital waiting room during a family crisis? It's this strange, awful place where time moves both too slowly and too fast. I sat there alone. Around me, I could see other families. A husband holding his wife's hand, both of them looking worried but together. Grandparents distracting young siblings with coloring books and snacks. A whole family clustered around one man, all of them supporting each other. And then there was me, alone. Checking my phone every 3 minutes, hoping for some response from my family. After about an hour, my mother finally texted back, "Let us know when he's out of surgery. Your father's back is acting up today, so driving would be difficult." That's it. That was the message. No, we love you. No, we're praying for him. No, we're so sorry we can't be there. Just an excuse. Nothing from Amanda. A nurse noticed me sitting by myself. Her name tag said Janet. She was older, maybe in her 50s, with kind eyes that reminded me of my grandmother who passed away years ago. "Honey," she said gently, sitting down next to me. "Is someone coming to sit with you?" I shook my head, not trusting myself to speak without crying. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "That must be really hard. But I want you to know, our surgical team is excellent. Dr. Bennett has done hundreds of these procedures. Your little boy is in the best possible hands." She brought me a cup of coffee and a small pack of crackers. "You need to keep your strength up," she said. "When he wakes up, he's going to need his mama." I thanked her. My eyes burning with tears I refused to let fall. 2 hours and 14 minutes later, I watched every minute tick by on that waiting room clock. Dr. Bennett came through the double doors. I jumped to my feet. "The surgery went perfectly," he said with a warm smile. "We caught it before it ruptured, which is great news. Mason did wonderfully. He's in recovery now, and you'll be able to see him in about 20 minutes. The relief was so overwhelming I nearly collapsed. I thanked him over and over, probably sounding like a crazy person. As soon as Dr. Bennett left, I sent a group text to my parents and Amanda. Mason's surgery went perfectly. He's in recovery. Doctor says he did great. My mother responded with a thumbs up emoji. A thumbs up emoji. My father sent back, "Great news. Tell the little guy we love him," Amanda finally responded an hour later. "Glad he's okay." Not one of them asked if I was okay. Not one of them asked if I needed anything. Not one of them asked when they could visit. When I finally got to see Mason in the recovery room, he was groggy from the anesthesia, his small body looking so fragile in that hospital bed, connected to an IV and monitoring equipment. When his eyes fluttered open and he saw me, he gave me the weakest little smile. "Hi, Mommy." I nearly broke down right there. "Hi, baby. You were so brave. The doctor fixed your tummy, and you're going to be all better soon." He looked around the room with sleepy, confused eyes. "Is Grandma here?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Not right now, sweetheart, but they sent their love. They're so proud of how brave you've been. Will they come tomorrow?" "Maybe," I lied. "Get some rest now, okay?" He drifted back to sleep, and I sat in the chair next to his bed, holding his hand, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself cry. The next 2.5 days were the hardest of my life. And I don't just mean the exhaustion or the stress. I mean the profound loneliness of realizing that when it really mattered, I had no one. The hospital gave me a recliner next to Mason's bed. It was one of those medical recliners that's technically a chair, but supposedly converts into something you can sleep in. Let me tell you, I don't know who they're fooling with that. I barely slept. Every time Mason stirred or made a sound, I was instantly awake, checking on him, making sure he was okay. Mason was in pain, despite the medication. He couldn't move much because of the incision. He couldn't eat solid food for the first day. He was bored and uncomfortable and scared, and all I could do was hold his hand and try to make him smile. But here's what made it even harder. I had to keep working. I know what you're thinking. How could I work while my son was in the hospital? But here's the reality of being a single mother in finance. I have clients. I have accounts. I have deadlines. I had already missed a full day of work for the surgery, and I couldn't just disappear for 3 more days, not without jeopardizing my position. So I worked from that hospital room. My laptop balanced on the tiny rolling table, connecting to the spotty hospital Wi-Fi. Mason would take naps, and I would frantically try to catch up on emails and client reports. When important phone calls came in, I would step into the hallway, always keeping Mason's room in view, terrified something would happen while I was gone. Every time I left that room, even for 15 minutes, my anxiety spiked. What if he woke up and I wasn't there? What if something went wrong? The nurses were angels. They really were. Janet checked on us regularly, bringing me extra coffee and sneaking Mason popsicles even when it wasn't technically time for them yet. Another nurse, Marcus, would stop by and talk to Mason about superheroes to distract him from the pain. But it wasn't the same as having family there. And Mason noticed. Throughout those 3 days, I sent regular updates to my family. Photos of Mason watching cartoons. Updates on how he was eating and moving. His temperature readings. Everything. The responses got shorter and shorter. My mother. Good to hear. My father. Glad he's improving. Amanda. Nothing. Then eventually a meme about hospitals being boring. On the second day, my mother actually texted me asking if I would still be able to make it to Sunday family dinner that weekend, as if Mason's surgery was just a minor inconvenience in the weekly schedule. I stared at that text for a long time before responding. Mom, Mason is still in the hospital. I don't know what Sunday will look like yet. Her response, well, let us know. Your aunt is making her famous pot roast. Not once did anyone offer to visit. Not once did anyone offer to bring food or sit with Mason so I could go home and shower. Not once did anyone act like this was a significant event in our lives. The only flowers that arrived were from my office. My boss, Catherine, sent a beautiful arrangement with a card that said, thinking of you and Mason. Take all the time you need. My own family sent nothing. On the third day, Thursday afternoon, Mason was doing much better physically. The doctor cleared him to go home the next morning, which was a huge relief. Mason was excited to sleep in his own bed again, but emotionally I could see the impact this was having on him. At 7 years old, Mason is perceptive. He understands more than I sometimes give him credit for. That evening, as I was helping him carefully get into a more comfortable position, he asked me a question that absolutely shattered my heart. Mommy, he said in his small voice, are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me? I froze. What? No, baby, why would you think that? His eyes filled with tears, because they didn't come see me. Mason's grandma and grandpa came when he broke his arm, and they brought him a teddy bear. But mine didn't come. Did I do something wrong? I pulled him close, being careful of his incision, and I held him while I tried to find the right words. Mason, Grandma, and Grandpa love you very much. They're not mad at you at all. They've just been very busy. Sometimes grown-ups don't make the right choices about what's important. But that's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Do you understand me? He nodded against my shoulder, but I could feel him crying softly, and that's when something shifted inside me. I had been willing to accept my family's behavior toward me. I had learned to live with being the overlooked daughter, the responsible one who everyone took for granted. But watching my 7-year-old son blame himself for my family's neglect, that I couldn't accept. That night, after Mason finally fell asleep, I sat in that uncomfortable recliner and let myself feel all the anger and hurt I had been pushing down. I cried silently so I wouldn't wake Mason. I cried for my son, who deserved so much better. I cried for myself, for all the years I had given and sacrificed and received nothing in return. But underneath the sadness was something else. Something hot and solid and unforgiving. Rage. I had spent my entire adult life being there for my family. Financially, emotionally, practically, I had bailed them out of problems. I had solved their crises. I had given them money I needed for my own expenses. And when I needed them most, when my child was in surgery, They couldn't even be bothered to show up. They couldn't even send flowers. Friday morning arrived with pale sunlight through the hospital window. Dr. Bennett came by early to check on Mason. One more time before discharge. He's healing beautifully, the doctor said with an approving smile. You did exactly the right thing bringing him in when you did. A few more hours, and this could have been much more serious. He gave me discharge instructions, prescriptions for pain medication and antibiotics, and a list of warning signs to watch for. He should be able to return to school in about a week and a half, but no heavy activity or sports for at least 4 weeks. As we were packing up Mason's few belongings, his stuffed dinosaur, the coloring books the nurses had given him, his tablet, my phone chimed. It was my mother. How is Mason doing? Will you be released today? I typed back, yes, we're heading home this morning. Her response came quickly. Good, so you'll be able to make Sunday dinner then? Your aunt really wants to see you. I stared at that message for a long moment. 3 days. My son had been in the hospital for 3 days, and this was the level of concern I got. An invitation to Sunday dinner so my aunt could see me. I didn't respond. I just put my phone away and focused on getting Mason home. The ride home was quiet. Mason dozed in his car seat, exhausted from the ordeal. I drove carefully, every bump in the road making me worry about his incision. When we got home, I settled Mason on the couch with his favorite blanket and put on his favorite Disney movie. I ordered pizza for dinner, a special treat, and tried to make everything feel normal and safe. But inside, I was changing. Something fundamental was shifting. I had reached a limit I didn't even know I had. That evening, after Mason was tucked into bed and finally sleeping peacefully in his own room, I went downstairs and poured myself a glass of wine. I almost never drink, but I needed something to take the edge off. I sat at my kitchen table in the dark, and I let myself acknowledge the truth I had been avoiding for years. My family didn't love me. Not really. They loved what I could do for them. They loved having someone to bail them out, to solve their problems, to provide money when they needed it. But they didn't actually care about me as a person, and they definitely didn't care about Mason. And I was done. I was done being used. I was done being ignored. I was done teaching my son that this was what family relationships should look like. But I had no idea that in less than 48 hours, my family would give me the perfect opportunity to show them exactly how done I was. Saturday was a quiet recovery day. Mason was feeling better, moving around a little more easily, though still sore. We spent the day watching movies together, reading books, playing quiet games. I took a personal day from work. I had earned it, and for once, I was going to take care of my son without also trying to juggle my job. Every few hours, I would check Mason's incision, give him his medications, and make sure he was eating small amounts. The kid was a trooper. He didn't complain much, even though I could tell he was uncomfortable. By Saturday evening, I was starting to feel like maybe we were getting back to normal. Mason's color was better. He was laughing at the movie we were watching. Things were going to be okay. And then, Sunday morning happened. Sunday morning started beautiful. Sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows. Birds singing outside. Mason came downstairs and actually asked for pancakes, which was a great sign. His appetite was coming back. I was standing at the stove, mixing pancake batter, feeling hopeful for the first time in days. When my phone chimed, it was a text from my mother. How is Mason feeling? Finally, I thought. Finally, they're checking in. I set down the mixing bowl and texted back, much better, thank you. He's eating well today and moving around more easily. I went back to the pancakes, pouring the first one onto the griddle. My phone chimed again. I glanced at the screen and I froze. The message from my mother read, good to hear. Listen, we need to talk about something important. Amanda is engaged. Tyler proposed last night at this beautiful restaurant. We're all so excited. She needs $10,000 for her dream wedding dress. It's Vera Wang, absolutely stunning. The boutique is holding it but needs a deposit by tomorrow. Can you transfer the money today? Family helps family. I read it once, twice, 3 times. My son had just been in the hospital. For 3 days, with emergency surgery. Not one member of my family had visited. Not one had sent flowers or offered any help whatsoever. And now, less than 72 hours later, they were asking me for $10,000 for a wedding dress. The pancake on the griddle started smoking. I flipped it, but it was already burned on one side. "Mommy, is everything okay?" Mason asked from his seat at the kitchen island. I forced a smile. "Yes, baby, everything's fine. Your pancake is almost ready, but everything was not fine." My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. I felt like the room was spinning. I served Mason his pancake, made sure he had syrup and butter, and told him I'd be right back. Then I went into the living room and sat down on the couch, staring at my phone. Before I could even process the first message, more started coming in, from my mother. "Did you see my text about Amanda's dress?" "They need an answer today." From my father. "Your mother told you about the dress, right?" $10,000. "I know it sounds like a lot, but this is her special day, Rebecca. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing." From my mother again. "The boutique closes at 5 today. You're the only one who has money to spare. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." Money to spare. Those 3 words made something snap inside me. Money to spare? I had just paid thousands of dollars in medical bills that my insurance didn't fully cover. I had taken unpaid time off work. I was a single mother raising a child alone, managing a mortgage, saving for college, trying to build a secure future. But sure, I had money to spare for a wedding dress. My phone started ringing. My father's name flashed on the screen. I answered. "Hello?" "Rebecca," my father said, his tone brisk and businesslike. "Did you get your mother's messages about the dress?" "I did," I said carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. "Good. So you can transfer the money today?" "Amanda is really stressed about this. The boutique won't hold the dress past tomorrow, and this is her dream dress. Tyler comes from money, you know. His family has expectations. She needs to look perfect." I closed my eyes. "Dad, Mason just had surgery. I've been dealing with that completely alone. I have significant medical bills. I've missed work. $10,000 for a dress is not something I can just pull out of nowhere." There was a pause. Then my father's voice took on an edge I knew all too well. "You work in finance, Rebecca. We know you make good money. This isn't the time to be selfish. Your sister has never asked you for anything major. This is important to her." "Never asked for anything major?" Was he joking? "Dad, she's never once called to check on Mason. Not once in 3 days. She didn't even respond to my message about his surgery until hours later." "Did she even tell you he was in the hospital?" "We've all been busy with the engagement excitement. Tyler's parents are planning this big party. There's been a lot to coordinate." His tone was dismissive. "Listen, this dress is a limited opportunity. Amanda tried it on yesterday, and it's absolutely perfect. She deserves this moment, Rebecca. She deserves to feel like a princess on her wedding day. And what did Mason deserve?" I thought. What did my 7-year-old son, who just had emergency surgery, deserve? But I didn't say that. Not yet. The conversation went on for another excruciating 10 minutes. My father dismissed every concern I raised. When I mentioned the medical bills, he said I had good insurance. When I mentioned missing work, he said I had vacation days. When I mentioned my own financial obligations, he called me selfish. Finally, I ended the call. My hands were trembling with anger. Within minutes, my mother called. Then texted. Then called again. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was even worse than the conversation with my father. "Rebecca, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this is your sister's future happiness at stake. We raised you better than this. Your father is very disappointed. Call me back immediately and fix this." I sat there on my couch staring at my phone, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity, crystal clear, cold, absolute clarity. Then the photos started coming through. Amanda had texted me directly. 3 photos of her in what I assumed was the dress. A massive white ball gown with intricate beading and a train that looked like it went on for miles. It was gorgeous, sure, but it looked more appropriate for a royal wedding than a regular person's marriage. And then came Amanda's text. "Thanks in advance, sis. You're the best. Can't wait for you to see me walk down the aisle in this. Tyler's family is so impressed. I need your banking info to give to the boutique for the deposit. Love you." Not a single word about Mason, not even a, "How is he feeling?" or, "Glad he's okay." Just, "Thanks for the $10,000 I haven't actually agreed to give you yet." I looked at those photos for a long time. And you know what I noticed? In the background of one photo, I could see my mother and Amanda both smiling, both excited, both clearly having a wonderful time shopping together. My mother couldn't come to the hospital. When my son was in surgery because of a hair appointment in my father's bad back, but she could spend an entire day dress shopping with Amanda, that's when I knew exactly what I needed to do. I went to my home office and opened my laptop. As a financial advisor, I handle complex financial situations every single day. I help clients set boundaries, protect their assets, make smart decisions. It was time I took my own advice. Before I tell you about the revenge I planned, I need to explain something I discovered that afternoon, something that made the betrayal so much worse. Years ago, when my father had a health scare, a minor heart issue that turned out to be nothing serious, I created an emergency fund for my parents. I was in my late 20s, just establishing myself in my career, but I wanted them to have financial security if something happened. I deposited $5,000 initially and added to it occasionally over the years. The idea was that if there was ever a true emergency, medical bills, urgent home repairs, something catastrophic, the money would be there. It was a joint account with my name and both my parents' names on it. I rarely checked it. I trusted them. That was my first mistake. Sitting at my desk that Sunday afternoon, I decided to look at the account. Just to see the balance, to understand what resources I even had available. What I found made my stomach turn. The account currently held just over $8,000. But as I scrolled through the transaction history, I saw dozens of withdrawals over the past year. Small amounts, $200 here, $350 there, $175, $400, none of which had ever been mentioned to me. I started documenting every transaction, pulling up statements going back months. The withdrawals were consistent, every few weeks, sometimes every few days. Small enough that I wouldn't notice if I wasn't looking, but they added up to nearly $4,000 over the past year. And the most recent withdrawal? Last week, Wednesday, the day Mason had surgery, $600, with a memo line that made my blood boil. Advance for A's dress shopping. While I was sitting alone in a hospital waiting room, terrified for my son's life. My parents were withdrawing money from our joint emergency account to go wedding dress shopping with Amanda. I felt physically sick. I pulled up more records. Over the past 2 years, they had withdrawn almost $7,000 from this account I had created and primarily funded for genuine emergencies. For what? I started cross-referencing with text messages and social media posts. A withdrawal of $800 in March matched a Facebook post from my mother about a wonderful spa weekend with my girl, Amanda. A $500 withdrawal in June was right before Amanda posted photos of a new designer purse, another $650 in September. The same week, my father posted pictures of a golf trip with his buddies. These weren't emergencies. This was just spending money, my money. Without asking, without even telling me, I sat back in my chair, feeling like I'd been punched. But here's what really got me. In that entire account history, there were exactly 3 deposits that hadn't come from me. 3. Over the course of 6 years. 2 deposits of $100 from my father and 1 deposit of $50 from my mother. I had created this account with $5,000, added probably another $5,000 over the years, and they had contributed a total of $250 while withdrawing almost $7,000. I opened a new document and started creating a spreadsheet. As a financial advisor, I'm very good at this. I documented every penny I had given my family over the past decade. The mortgage refinance, $5,000 in closing costs I had covered, plus the hours I had spent getting them a better rate. Amanda's credit card debt, the first time, $12,000. I had created a payment plan and covered the first 4 months myself. Amanda's credit card debt, the second time, which I had almost forgotten about, $3,200, my father's medical bills when he had pneumonia, $2,800, the loan for Amanda's graduate school that was never repaid, $4,000 smaller amounts, $500 here for car repairs, $800 there for property taxes, $300 for home repairs, $600 for utilities when my father was between jobs, and the emergency account they had been draining, approximately $7,000 over time. The total came to $53,820. $53,820. Over a decade, I had given my family nearly $54,000. And that didn't even count the time. The emotional labor, the career advice I'd given Amanda that she never followed, the financial planning I'd done for my parents that they ignored. I created a second column, support received. I sat there, staring at that empty column, trying to think of what to put in it. They had given me nothing. Not financially, obviously, I had never asked, but emotionally, practically, the support I needed as a single mother, nothing. I couldn't think of a single time in the past 5 years when they had helped me without being asked multiple times. I couldn't think of a single time they had offered to babysit Mason just to give me a break. I couldn't remember the last time my mother had called just to see how I was doing. The only thing I could put in that column was Sunday dinners I was expected to attend. Birthday cards. Occasional text messages. That's it. $53,000 in one direction. Some birthday cards in the other. I sat there looking at that spreadsheet for a long time, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. Then I picked up my phone and made a call. Robert, hi. It's Rebecca Carter. I'm sorry to bother you on a Sunday. Robert Martinez was the manager at my bank branch. Over the years, we had developed a friendly professional relationship. He knew I was in finance. He knew I was a single mom. We'd had coffee a few times to discuss industry trends. Rebecca, hey. No bother at all. How's Mason doing? I heard about the appendicitis from Janet in operations. Her niece is a nurse at Memorial. At least someone cared enough to ask. He's doing much better, thank you. Actually, Robert, I'm calling because I need some advice. It's about my accounts, specifically a joint account with my parents, and it's complicated. I'm listening. I explained the situation. The emergency account, the unauthorized withdrawals, the pattern of financial exploitation, the current demand for $10,000. Robert listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long pause. Unfortunately, he finally said, this kind of family financial entanglement is more common than you'd think. The good news is, because you're the primary account holder and the primary contributor, we have options. For the next hour, Robert guided me through a comprehensive plan to protect my assets. First, I would freeze the joint emergency account effective immediately. No further withdrawals could be made without my in-person authorization with photo ID. Second, I would establish a new educational trust for Mason with ironclad protections. This would be a special type of account that could only be accessed for educational expenses, protected from anyone, including me, trying to withdraw it for any other reason. Third, I would document everything. Every text message, every request, every withdrawal, create a paper trail that clearly showed the pattern. And fourth, Robert paused before suggesting this one. You could send a token payment, he said carefully. Sometimes, when you want to make a point very clear, sending an insultingly small amount with a pointed message can be more effective than simply refusing. It demonstrates that you are capable of sending money. You're choosing not to. But Rebecca, I'll warn you, this will escalate the situation. Good, I said. It's time the situation escalated. After I hung up with Robert, I logged into my banking app. My hands were completely steady now. I knew exactly what I was doing. I initiated a transfer to Amanda's account, $1, one single dollar. In the memo line, I typed, for Avail. This is all you're getting after abandoning Mason. Then I completed the paperwork to freeze the emergency account. Changed all the permissions. Transferred the remaining balance minus $100 to a new account in my name only. I set up the educational trust for Mason with every protection available. No one could touch that money except for his education. Not my parents, not Amanda, not even me for any other purpose. It was completely protected now. As I worked, I felt strange. Not angry anymore, not sad, just clear. For the first time in my adult life, I was setting boundaries. Real boundaries. The kind that couldn't be crossed or manipulated or guilt-tripped away. I knew there would be consequences. I knew my family would explode. I knew this was going to get ugly. But you know what? I didn't care anymore. For too long, I had been the responsible one. The reliable one. The ATM everyone could depend on. That version of Rebecca was done. It was time for them to meet the new version. Monday morning came like a storm I had been watching, form on the horizon. I had dropped Mason off at school that morning, his first day back since the surgery. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had been briefed about his limitations. No running, no playground equipment, no gym class. She promised to keep a close eye on him. I arrived at my office at 8:30 a.m. By 8:45, my phone had already erupted. 6 missed calls from my mother, 4 from my father, 12 text messages from Amanda, 2 voicemails, and it wasn't even 9 a.m. yet. I sat at my desk, took a deep breath, and checked the first voicemail. My mother's voice came through, high-pitched and frantic. "Rebecca Elizabeth Carter, what is the meaning of this? $1? $1? Is this some kind of sick joke? The boutique needs the deposit by noon today, or Amanda loses the dress. Call me back immediately!" The second voicemail was even worse. My mother again. But this time her voice was shaking with a mix of tears and fury. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this is your sister's future happiness we're talking about. Your father is absolutely furious. We raised you better than this. You fix this mistake right now, do you hear me?" I deleted both voicemails and started reading the texts. Amanda's messages were a journey through the 5 stages of grief. Except instead of acceptance at the end, she landed on pure venom. Early messages. "Hey sis, I think there was a mistake with the transfer. It's only showing $1 lol. Then, seriously, can you resend? The boutique is asking for the deposit info." Then, "Rebecca, this isn't funny. Please send the money. You know how important this is." Then, "Why are you doing this to me? What did I ever do to you?" And finally, the ones that showed her true colors. "You've always been jealous of me, always, since we were kids. You can't stand that I'm getting married and having a beautiful wedding. If you ruin this for me, I will never forgive you. Never." I put my phone on silent and tried to focus on work. I had 3 client meetings scheduled, and I needed to be professional. But by 10:30, my assistant, Lauren, knocked on my door. "Rebecca," she said quietly, looking uncomfortable. "Your mother is here. She's in the lobby and she seems very upset. She's demanding to see you." I closed my eyes briefly. "Of course she was. Send her in, please. And Lauren, no interruptions for the next 30 minutes, no matter what you hear." Lauren nodded, her eyes sympathetic. "Understood." A moment later, my mother burst into my office. I say burst because that's literally what she did. Threw the door open so hard it bounced off the wall. Her face was red and blotchy, a combination of tears and rage. Her hair, which was usually perfectly styled, because God forbid she miss a hair appointment, looked disheveled. She didn't even wait for the door to close behind her before she started yelling. "What have you done? Your father tried to get the money from the emergency account this morning, and the teller said it was frozen. Then we discovered you emptied it, except for $100 like some kind of slap in the face. Who do you think you are?" I remained seated, keeping my voice calm and level. "Good morning, Mom. Please close the door and lower your voice. This is my workplace. Don't you dare," she started, but I cut her off. "Close the door. Sit down or leave. Those are your options." Something in my tone must have gotten through because she closed the door, though she slammed it. But she didn't sit. She stood across from my desk, hands on her hips, looking at me like I was a stranger. "That account," I said calmly, "was created by me, with my money, for genuine emergencies. Not for spa weekends, not for golf trips, not for designer purses, and certainly not for wedding dresses. We're your parents. We don't need your permission to use family money. It's not family money, Mom. It's my money. Money I earned. Money I saved. Money I set aside in case you or Dad had a real crisis, medical emergency, job loss, something catastrophic. Instead, you've been using it as your personal spending fund, withdrawing thousands of dollars without ever mentioning it to me." She waved her hand dismissively. "Small expenses. Nothing worth bothering you about. But this dress is important. Amanda is devastated. The boutique won't hold it past noon." I leaned forward, my hands clasped on my desk. "Mason had emergency surgery last week. We know that. He was in the hospital for 3 days. I was there alone. I called you, begged you to come, and you told me you had a hair appointment and Dad's back hurt." A flicker of shame crossed her face, but it was gone in an instant. "Hospitals are depressing, Rebecca. We sent our love. We were thinking of you." A 7-year-old boy asked me if his grandparents were mad at him because they didn't come to see him. A child who just had surgery thought he had done something wrong because his own family couldn't be bothered to visit. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. For just a moment she looked uncomfortable. But then the defensiveness returned. We were busy. And you're making this about you again, just like you always do. This is Amanda's moment. This is her special time. And Mason's surgery wasn't important enough for anyone to show up. Those are two completely different things. You're right, I said, my voice like ice. One was a medical emergency involving a child. The other is a want, not a need. A $10,000 dress is not an emergency, Mom. Her voice rose again, and I was grateful for my office's solid door. You have always been jealous of Amanda, always trying to make her special moments about you. Is that what you think this is? Jealousy? I almost laughed. Mom, I've given this family nearly $54,000 over the past decade. I have the receipts. I made a spreadsheet. Would you like to see it? That stopped her cold. What? I pulled up the document on my computer and turned the screen toward her. Every mortgage payment, every credit card debt, every loan that was never repaid, every medical bill, every emergency that I fixed. $53,820. And that's just the money. That doesn't count the time, the advice, the emotional labor, the career guidance that was ignored. She stared at the screen, her face going pale. And what have I received in return? What support have I gotten? I asked. Sunday dinners where everyone talks about Amanda's life and ignores mine? Birthday cards? The expectation that I'll just keep giving forever? We're family, she said weakly. Family helps each other. You're right. Family does help each other. So where were you when I needed help? Where were you when Mason was in surgery? Where were you during the 3 hardest days of my life? She had no answer. Instead, she grabbed her purse and straightened her shoulders, her expression hardening. If you don't fix this right now, if you don't transfer that money by noon, you can consider yourself no longer part of this family. The words hung in the air between us. And you know what? Instead of feeling scared or hurt, I felt free. Is that really how you measure family, Mom? By financial transactions? Because if withdrawing financial support means I'm not family, then what were you when you didn't show up at the hospital? Were you family then? Her face went from red to almost purple. She couldn't answer that. She didn't have an answer. Your father will be calling you, she said through gritted teeth. And don't bother coming to Sunday dinner anymore if this is how you treat family. She stormed to the door, yanked it open, then turned back for one final shot. You're going to regret this, Rebecca. Amanda won't forget this. Your father won't forget this. When you're old and alone and need us, remember this moment. Then she was gone, the door slamming behind her. I sat at my desk, my hands shaking slightly, but not from fear or regret. From adrenaline, from the rush of finally standing up for myself, Lauren appeared in my doorway a few minutes later. Rebecca? I think half the floor heard that. Are you okay? I surprised myself by smiling. Yeah, Lauren. Actually, I think I'm better than I've been in years. But the day was far from over. By lunchtime, my father had called 6 more times, each voicemail progressively angrier. Amanda's texts had become so vicious I finally blocked her number. And then, at 1:15, I got a call from Robert at the bank. Rebecca, I wanted to give you a heads up, he said, his voice serious. Your parents just left my office. Oh no. What happened? They tried to override the freeze on the account, claiming it was a genuine emergency. When I explained that, as the primary account holder, you have the authority to freeze it, they tried another approach. They filed a fraud complaint, claiming you had unlawfully transferred money from a joint account without their knowledge. My stomach dropped. They what? They also claimed you were having mental health issues that were preventing you from making rational decisions. They suggested you were having some kind of breakdown after your son's surgery and weren't thinking clearly. I was speechless. They were actually trying to paint me as mentally unstable to get access to my money. I shut that down immediately, Robert continued. I explained that you had every right to manage the account as you did, that all transactions were legal and proper, and that their accusations were unfounded. But Rebecca, I wanted you to know. They mentioned possibly contacting your employer to express concerns about your mental state. That's when I realized just how far they were willing to go. Thank you for the warning. Robert, I appreciate it more than you know." As soon as I hung up, I went straight to my supervisor's office. Nancy Chen had been my boss for 5 years. She knew my work ethic, knew my character, knew what kind of person I was. I knocked on her door, and when she looked up, she must have seen something in my face because she immediately said, "Close the door and sit down." "What's wrong?" I told her everything. The surgery, the abandonment, the money demand, the confrontation, and the threat that my parents might call claiming I was mentally unstable. Nancy listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned and then angry on my behalf. "First of all," she said when I finished, "I'm so sorry about Mason. I had no idea he was in the hospital. How is he doing now? The fact that my boss cared more than my own parents did almost made me cry right there. He's recovering well, thank you. Good. Second, if your parents call here, they'll be dealing with me, and it won't be a pleasant conversation for them. What you've described is financial exploitation, and trying to claim you're mentally unstable to maintain that exploitation is absolutely unacceptable." She leaned forward. "Rebecca, you're one of my best advisors. Your work is excellent, your clients love you, and you've never given me any cause for concern about your judgment. If you need time off to deal with this family situation, you have it. And if you need documentation from me about your mental state and professional competency, I'll provide it." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you, Nancy. That means more than you know." By the end of the workday, my parents had made 3 separate attempts to withdraw money from the frozen account. Each was automatically declined. Amanda had sent me a final text from a different number before I blocked that one too. "I hope you're happy. You ruined everything. I'll make sure everyone knows what you did." When I picked up Mason from his after-school program, he was tired but happy. He showed me a drawing he'd made, our family, just him and me, standing in front of our house with a big sun overhead. "Mrs. Patterson said I was really brave," he told me proudly. She told the whole class about my surgery and how brave I was. I hugged him close. "You are the bravest kid I know." As we drove home, Mason chatted about his day, about his friends, about the book they were reading in class. Normal, wonderful 7-year-old conversation, and I realized this was what mattered. Not my parents' anger, not Amanda's wedding dress, not Sunday dinners with people who only valued me for my bank account. This, my son, healing and happy. Our little family of 2, but I knew it wasn't over. My mother's threat hung in the air. "You're going to regret this." I didn't regret it. Not even a little. But I also knew the storm was still building. Tuesday evening, my phone rang with my father's number. I had been ignoring their calls all day. By this point, I had received probably 40-plus calls and texts combined. But something told me to answer this one. "Rebecca." My father's voice was tight, controlled, the voice he used when he was absolutely furious but trying not to explode. "We need to have a family meeting. Tonight, 7 o'clock. Our house. I can't do tonight, Dad. Mason is still recovering, and I don't want to leave him with a sitter so soon after surgery." "Then bring him. This needs to be resolved immediately." Is this about Amanda's dress? Because my answer hasn't changed. This is about much more than the dress now. This is about your accusations, your actions, and the way you've disrespected this family. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. He hung up before I could respond. I stood in my kitchen, considering my options. I could refuse to go, but that would only escalate things further, and they might show up at my house. If this confrontation was inevitable, and it clearly was, maybe it was better to face it head-on. On my terms. I called my neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins. She was a retired teacher, probably in her 60s, who had become a friend over the years. She sometimes watched Mason when I had evening client meetings. "Rebecca, dear." "Of course I'll watch Mason. Take all the time you need." "It might be a difficult conversation," I warned her. "Then you take as long as you need to have it," she said firmly. "Mason and I will bake cookies and watch that space documentary he's been talking about. You go handle your business." Before leaving, I prepared. I printed out the spreadsheet showing all my financial contributions. I printed bank statements showing the unauthorized withdrawals. I printed text message screenshots showing the pattern of contact only when money was needed. I put it all in a folder and drove to my parents' house. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Amanda's car and an unfamiliar black luxury SUV. Tyler's car. I assumed. My mother answered the door without a word, just turned and walked toward the living room. The setup was almost theatrical. My father sat in his leather recliner, his throne, basically, where he'd held court during every family discussion since I was a child. Amanda and a tall, well-dressed man I assumed was Tyler sat on the couch. Everyone looked up as I entered. The mood was hostile. You could feel it in the air. "Sit down," my father ordered, pointing to a dining chair that had been placed opposite everyone else. The literal hot seat. I remained standing. "Before we start, I want to be clear about something. I'm here to discuss the pattern of financial and emotional exploitation that has characterized our family relationships for years. I'm not here to be guilted, manipulated, or bullied into providing money for Amanda's wedding." Amanda shot to her feet, her face flushed. "Exploitation? Are you serious right now? Just because I asked for help with my wedding? This isn't about just the dress, Amanda. This is about years of one-sided support. It's about the fact that none of you showed up when Mason was in surgery. And it's about the unauthorized withdrawals from an account I created for actual emergencies." Tyler spoke for the first time, looking confused. "What unauthorized withdrawals? What account?" I watched as my mother quickly interjected. "That's not relevant to why we're here. Tyler, we're here to discuss Rebecca's refusal to help with wedding expenses." "Actually," I said, speaking directly to Tyler, "I think it's very relevant. Several years ago, I created an emergency fund for my parents. I deposited $5,000 initially and added to it over time. The intention was that if they faced a genuine crisis, medical emergency, job loss, something catastrophic, the money would be there." Tyler was listening carefully, his expression neutral but attentive. "Without my knowledge," I continued, "they've been making regular withdrawals over the past year. Small amounts, but they add up to almost $4,000, including $600 withdrawn last week, the day Mason was in surgery, with a memo line reading, 'Advance for A's dress shopping.'" Tyler's eyebrows shot up. He turned to look at Amanda. "Is this true? You told me your sister refused to contribute to our wedding. You didn't mention your parents were already using her money without permission." Amanda looked trapped, her eyes darting between Tyler and me. "It's not like that. Mom and Dad said the account was for family needs, and the wedding is a family need. A $10,000 dress is not a need," I said firmly. Tyler's expression had changed. "10,000? Amanda, you told me the dress budget was $2,000. I already thought that was excessive." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Amanda's face went from red to white. My mother looked furious that I'd revealed this information. My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I think," I said calmly, "it's time we all put our cards on the table." I pulled out my folder and handed copies of the spreadsheet to everyone in the room. "This is a record of every financial contribution I've made to this family over the past 10 years. Every payment, every loan, every crisis I solved." I watched their faces as they looked at the numbers. $53,820, I said clearly. "That includes helping refinance this house, paying off Amanda's credit card debt, twice, covering Dad's medical bills, and dozens of smaller loans that were never repaid." Tyler was staring at the spreadsheet, his jaw tight. "What this spreadsheet doesn't include," I continued, "is any record of emotional support flowing in the other direction." I turned to face them all. "Last week, my 7-year-old son had emergency appendix surgery. I called each of you begging for support. Not money, just your presence. None of you came. Not once during his 3-day hospital stay." My mother finally looked ashamed, but my father maintained his defensive posture. "Mason asked me if his grandparents were mad at him," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "A child who just had surgery thought he'd done something wrong because his family didn't visit." "We explained why we couldn't come," my father said. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "Am I?" "Because 3 days after you couldn't visit your grandson in the hospital, you demanded $10,000 for a wedding dress. How exactly should I interpret those priorities?" I turned to Tyler. "Did you know about Mason's surgery?" He shook his head slowly. "No, I had no idea." Amanda shot me a venomous look. "Stop trying to make Tyler think badly of us. This is just your jealousy talking. You've always resented that Mom and Dad love me more. The room went deadly silent. The truth that had always been understood but never spoken aloud now hung in the air between us. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Amanda, that's not true. We love both our daughters equally, but the damage was done. Tyler was now looking at his fiancée with different eyes. My mother couldn't meet anyone's gaze. I took a deep breath. Family, I said quietly, means showing up for each other. It means celebrating successes and providing support during crises. It means care flows in both directions, not just one way. I looked each of them in the eye. For years, I've been expected to give, financially, emotionally, practically, while receiving token acknowledgement in return. That ends today. I'm not cutting contact. I'm not saying I'll never help in a genuine emergency, but I am establishing boundaries. No more financial support without genuine relationship. No more one-sided giving. No more treating me like an ATM while ignoring my son. My voice was steady, calm, final. The money I've saved is for Mason's future and our security. It's not available for designer dresses or any other non-essential expenses. The emergency account will remain frozen until we rebuild trust, which will take time and genuine effort from all of you. If you want a relationship with me and Mason, you're welcome to it. But it must be based on mutual care and respect, not financial transactions. I gathered my purse and folder. The choice is yours. I walked toward the door. No one spoke. The silence was deafening. Just as I reached the door, Tyler's voice stopped me. Rebecca. I turned. He stood up, his expression serious but respectful. I want to apologize. I had no idea about any of this, especially about your son's surgery. For what it's worth, I think you're absolutely right about family priorities. I nodded, genuinely appreciating his words. Amanda looked shocked, her mouth hanging open. As I drove home, something strange happened. Instead of feeling upset or anxious, I felt light, as if a weight I'd carried. For so long I'd forgotten it was there had finally been lifted from my shoulders. 2 months have passed since that confrontation. In my parents' living room, 2 months of silence, of rebuilding, of learning what it means to truly put yourself and your child first. Mason healed completely from his surgery. Within 3 weeks, he was back to his energetic self, riding his bike, building elaborate Lego cities across our living room floor, begging for playdates with his friends. The physical healing was straightforward. The emotional healing has been more complex. For the first 3 weeks after the confrontation, there was complete silence from my family. No calls, no texts, no social media interactions, nothing. And you know what? I didn't miss it. The constant anxiety of waiting for the next financial request, the background stress of wondering when I'd be needed again. It was gone. I used that time to focus on us. Mason and me, our little family of 2, I started seeing a therapist. Her name is Dr. Morgan, and she specializes in family dynamics and boundary setting. Our weekly sessions have been eye-opening. What you're describing, she explained during our second session, is a classic family system with rigid roles. You were assigned the role of provider and caretaker. Amanda was assigned the role of the one being taken care of. Breaking out of these roles threatens the entire system, which is why the backlash was so severe. She helped me understand that I hadn't just been generous, I'd been enabling dysfunction. By constantly rescuing everyone, I prevented them from experiencing consequences. I prevented growth. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, Dr. Morgan told me. It's necessary. It's healthy. And it's the only way relationships can become genuine. The financial freedom has been unexpectedly wonderful. Without the constant drain of family emergencies, I've been able to plan things I'd only dreamed about. I booked a summer vacation for Mason and me, our first real vacation that isn't just visiting relatives. A week at a beach resort with pools and kids' activities. Mason talks about it constantly. His excitement is worth more than any wedding dress. I also started the home renovation I'd been postponing for years. Nothing extravagant, just updating our worn kitchen cabinets and replacing the stained carpet with hardwood floors, making our house feel like our home. The first crack in the family silence came 6 weeks after our confrontation. A letter arrived. An actual handwritten letter, not an email or text. From Amanda. I sat on my back porch with tea, steeling myself, before opening it. "Dear Rebecca," it began, "Tyler and I have postponed our wedding. After our family meeting, he had a lot of questions about our financial situation and expectations. We've been having long, difficult conversations about priorities and values." She went on to acknowledge grudgingly that she'd been oblivious to Mason's surgery and health challenges. "I realize I haven't been the kind of aunt I should have been," she wrote. "I can't change the past, but I'm trying to think more carefully about how my choices affect others. Tyler has helped me see things differently. It wasn't a profound apology. It wasn't everything I deserved. But coming from Amanda, it was significant." She closed by saying she wasn't asking for anything, just opening a door to possibly rebuild some kind of relationship in the future. I wrote back briefly. Thanked her for the letter, expressed hope that her conversations with Tyler would lead to a stronger foundation. I didn't rush to forgive. I didn't pretend everything was fine. But I left the door open a crack. A week later, a birthday card arrived for Mason from my parents. Inside was a gift card to his favorite toy store and a simple note. "We'd like to take Mason out for ice cream sometime, if that's okay with you. We love him and miss him. No demands, no guilt, just a small olive branch." Mason was thrilled about both the gift card and the ice cream offer. "Can I see Grandma and Grandpa?" he asked hopefully. "Maybe," I told him. "Let's start with ice cream and see how it goes." I'm proceeding cautiously. Dr. Morgan helped me develop a framework for limited, controlled interactions, ways to test whether real change is possible without exposing Mason or myself to further harm. Last Saturday, we met my parents at a local ice cream shop. Mason was excited, but also nervous. He could feel the tension even if he didn't fully understand it. It was awkward at first. My mother looked older, more tired. My father seemed smaller somehow, less commanding. But they focused entirely on Mason, asked about school, listened to him talk about his Lego projects, complimented his bravery during the surgery. My mother even teared up when Mason showed her the small scar from his incision. "We should have been there," she said quietly, looking at me. "We should have been there for both of you. It wasn't enough." Not yet. But it was something. The visit lasted 30 minutes. When it was time to leave, Mason hugged them both, and my father slipped him an extra $5 for next time. "Next time?" Mason asked me hopefully in the car. "We'll see, buddy. We'll see." Meanwhile, I've been building a different kind of support system. My work colleagues have become real friends. 2 other single moms in my office, and I now have a standing monthly dinner date. We take turns watching each other's kids, swapping advice, supporting each other. Mrs. Jenkins from next door has become like a surrogate grandmother to Mason. She teaches him to bake, lets him help in her garden, listens to his stories with genuine interest. Last week, he proudly brought home chocolate chip cookies they'd made together, saving the biggest one for me. "Mrs. Jenkins says family is the people who show up," he told me seriously. "Not just the people you're related to, out of the mouths of babes." Mason himself has shown remarkable resilience through all of this. Children are perceptive. He knew something was wrong with our family dynamics long before I explicitly addressed it. Recently, at bedtime, he asked me a question. "Mommy, is it okay to say no to someone, even if they really want something?" I sat on his bed. "Yes, buddy, it's okay to say no, even to people you care about, if what they're asking isn't right for you to give." "Why?" "Marcus at school wanted my new action figure. He said best friends always share everything, but I didn't want to give it to him because it's special to me. Was that okay?" I pulled him close. "That was absolutely okay. Real friendship isn't about taking things from each other. It's about respecting each other's feelings and boundaries." He nodded seriously. "That's what I thought. I told Marcus we could play with it together at recess, but it would stay mine." He got mad at first, but then he was okay with it. In that moment, I realized my 7-year-old son had already learned the lesson it took me 34 years to grasp. Healthy relationships require boundaries, and love without respect isn't really love at all. It's been 8 months now since Mason's surgery. 8 months since everything changed. Amanda and Tyler did eventually get married, but it was a much smaller, simpler wedding than originally planned. They invited me. I went with Mason, and we stayed for 2 hours. Amanda's dress was beautiful, not Vera Wang, but lovely. She seemed genuinely happy. Tyler pulled me aside at the reception. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For being honest that night. For showing us what we were becoming. Amanda and I went to couples counseling. We've worked through a lot. The wedding we had today, this is who we really are, not the fantasy version her parents wanted. I appreciated that more than he knew. My parents and I have established a new normal. We see each other about once a month. Usually it's something Mason-centered, a school play, his birthday party, a trip to the zoo. The visits are pleasant but not deep. Trust rebuilds slowly, if it rebuilds at all. My mother tried once, about 4 months ago, to ask if I could help my father with some car repairs. I could see her struggle with the request, knowing it might damage our fragile new relationship. "Mom," I said gently, "if Dad needs help finding a good mechanic or comparing quotes, I'm happy to advise. But I'm not providing money." "That boundary hasn't changed," she nodded, looking disappointed but not angry. "I understand. That was progress. The emergency account remains frozen. The money I left in it, 100, sits there as a symbol. I told them if there's ever a genuine crisis, they can call me and we'll discuss it. But the days of unlimited access to my finances are over. Amanda got a job. A real job in marketing. It doesn't pay amazingly, but she's supporting herself. She and Tyler are learning to budget, to plan, to build a life based on their actual resources rather than fantasy expectations. Last month, she sent Mason a birthday card with $20 inside and a note saying she was sorry she hadn't been a better aunt. It was a small gesture, but it mattered. Dr. Morgan and I still meet every other week. She's helped me process not just the recent events, but patterns that go back to childhood. The favoritism I normalized. The emotional neglect I accepted as normal. The way I learned to measure my worth by my usefulness to others. "You're rewriting the script," she told me recently. "Not just for you, but for Mason. You're teaching him what healthy relationships look like. That's generational healing." The money I once would have sent for Amanda's dress, that $10,000, went into Mason's college fund. It's growing steadily, protected by the trust I established. Someday, when he's ready for college, he'll have options. Real options. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled things. If I wish I'd been less harsh, more forgiving, more understanding. My answer is always the same. No, not even a little. Because here's what I've learned. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's honest. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's necessary. And teaching people how to treat you isn't manipulation. It's self-respect. For 34 years, I accepted the role my family assigned me. The responsible one, the provider, the fixer, the ATM, but that role came at a cost. It cost me my self-worth. It cost me genuine relationships. It almost cost me the ability to teach my son what healthy love looks like. That day in the hospital, sitting alone while Mason was in surgery, I hit a breaking point. But it wasn't a breakdown. It was a breakthrough. I realized I had a choice. I could continue the pattern, continue sacrificing myself on the altar of family, obligation, continue teaching Mason that love means giving until you're empty, or I could choose differently. I chose differently. And you know what happened? The sky didn't fall. My family didn't disown me permanently. The world didn't end. Instead, something better emerged. Not perfect relationships. We're not there yet, and we may never be. But honest ones. Relationships with boundaries. Connections based on mutual respect rather than financial obligation. Last week, Mason and I were sitting on our back porch watching the sunset. He was telling me about a conflict at school, a friend who kept asking to borrow his things and not returning them. "What should I do, Mommy?" he asked. "What do you think you should do?" He thought for a moment. "I think I should tell him that I like being his friend, but I can't keep lending him things if he doesn't give them back. And if he gets mad, that's okay. I can find friends who respect my stuff." I pulled him close and kissed the top of his head. "That sounds exactly right, buddy. He's learning. At 7 years old, he's learning lessons I didn't learn until I was 34. He's learning that boundaries are healthy, that respect is necessary, that love doesn't mean giving everything away, and that's worth more than any amount of money I could have given my family. If you're still watching, thank you. Thank you for listening to my story, for staying with me through this entire journey. I know it was long. I know it was painful in places. But I wanted to be honest about what financial and emotional exploitation in families really looks like. It's not always dramatic. It's often subtle, small requests that add up over time. Guilt trips disguised as love. Manipulation wrapped in the language of family obligation. And here's what I want you to understand. If you see yourself in my story, you're not alone. So many people are living this same pattern right now. Being the responsible one, the fixer, the person everyone turns to when they need help, but who can't find support when they need it themselves. Maybe it's a parent who constantly needs money. Maybe it's a sibling who never grew up. Maybe it's extended family who sees you as a resource rather than a person. Whatever your version looks like, I want you to know you have permission to set boundaries. You have permission to say no. You have permission to protect yourself and your children. You have permission to build a life that isn't constantly drained by other people's poor choices. And if anyone tells you that setting boundaries makes you selfish, that person is probably the one who's been benefiting from your lack of boundaries. Real love, genuine family connection, doesn't require you to sacrifice your well-being. Real love doesn't keep score, but it also doesn't flow in only one direction forever. I've learned some hard truths over these past 8 months. First, you can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. For years, I kept bailing out my family, thinking that if I just helped them one more time, they'd finally get it together. But you can't solve problems for people who aren't ready to solve them for themselves. All you can do is protect yourself from becoming a casualty of their dysfunction. Second, boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. I didn't cut my family off completely. I didn't say never again to any relationship. What I did was establish clear terms. If you want access to my life, my resources, my energy, you have to treat me with respect. You have to show up. You have to care. The door is open to anyone willing to walk through it honestly. But I'm no longer leaving it wide open for people to come and go as they please, taking what they want and leaving nothing behind. Third, financial abuse is real, even in families. Especially in families. We talk a lot about emotional abuse, physical abuse, but financial exploitation often gets overlooked, especially when it's parents or siblings doing it. But taking advantage of someone's financial resources, using guilt and obligation to extract money, accessing accounts without permission, that's abuse. It doesn't matter that they're family. It doesn't matter that they need it. Abuse is abuse. Fourth, your children are watching. This might be the most important lesson of all. Mason was learning from my example. He was learning that love means giving until you're empty. That family means accepting mistreatment. That his worth would be measured by what he could provide to others. I had to change my behavior not just for me, but to show him a different way. To teach him that he deserves respect, that his boundaries matter, that his needs are valid. And finally, you deserve relationships that add to your life, not drain it. This sounds obvious, but it took me 3 decades to really understand it. You deserve people who celebrate your successes, who show up during your crises, who care about your children, who see you as a whole person, not just as a solution to their problems. It's been just over a year now since that Sunday morning text demanding $10,000 for a wedding dress. Mason is 8 years old now, thriving in 3rd grade. He's healthy, happy, and remarkably well-adjusted. Last week, his teacher told me he's one of the kindest kids in the class, always helping other students, but also standing up for himself when needed. That balance makes me prouder than any academic achievement could. Last month, we took that vacation I promised him. A week at a beach resort. Mason learned to swim in the ocean, built sandcastles, made friends with other kids at the hotel. We ate ice cream for breakfast one morning, just because we could. We stayed up late watching the stars. On our last night there, as we sat on the beach watching the sunset, Mason said something that made my heart full. "Mommy, this has been the best week ever." "I'm so glad, buddy." "What made it so special?" He thought for a moment. "Because it was just us, and you were happy the whole time. You weren't stressed or worried. You were just happy." That's when I realized my stress, my constant state of anxiety about the next family crisis, he'd been carrying that too. By setting boundaries, by protecting our peace, I hadn't just freed myself. I'd freed him. My relationship with my parents has stabilized into something manageable. We see each other about twice a month now. The interactions are careful, cordial, but there's a foundation of honesty that didn't exist before. My father actually apologized 3 months ago. We were at a park watching Mason play on the playground, and he said quietly, "I'm sorry we weren't there when he had surgery. That was wrong. We were wrong. It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't everything I needed to hear, but it was something. My mother is trying. She calls now just to talk, not to ask for anything. She remembers Mason's school events and asks how they went. She sent me flowers on my birthday last month with a card that said, 'I'm proud of the mother you've become.' Small steps, but they matter. Amanda and I are rebuilding slowly. She and Tyler had their first baby 2 months ago, a daughter named Sophie. I visited them in the hospital, and I watched my sister hold her newborn with this look of overwhelmed love and terror that I remembered so well from when Mason was born. 'I don't know how you did this alone,' she whispered to me. Tyler steps away for 10 minutes and I panic. I can't imagine doing everything by myself. 'You just do,' I told her, 'because you love them more than anything else.' She looked at me then, really looked at me and said, 'I'm sorry. For everything. For not being there. For not understanding. For being so focused on myself that I couldn't see what you were dealing with.' It was the apology I'd needed. Better late than never. I'm her emergency contact now when Tyler's unavailable. She calls me for advice about baby stuff. I send her articles about newborn care and remind her to sleep when the baby sleeps. We're not best friends. We may never be. But we're becoming something real. The emergency account? It still sits frozen with that symbolic $100. I've told them that if there's ever a genuine emergency, medical crisis, job loss, something truly catastrophic, they should call me. But so far, they haven't needed to. My father found a part-time job to supplement their retirement income. My mother started selling crafts on Etsy. Amanda and Tyler are budgeting carefully, living within their means. Turns out, when you stop enabling people, they figure out how to help themselves. The money I've saved over the past year, the money that would have disappeared into the family vacuum, has gone toward building our life. Mason's college fund is growing. I started my own investment portfolio. We upgraded to a better car, one with excellent safety ratings. I even started a small fund for adventures, unexpected opportunities, experiences, memories. Last week, Mrs. Jenkins, remember her? Our neighbor who watched Mason during the confrontation? Fell and broke her hip. I didn't hesitate. I helped arrange her care, drove her to appointments, had Mason make her get well cards. We brought her dinners and kept her company. "You're so generous," she told me one evening. "Your family's lucky to have you." "You're my family too," I told her. Family isn't just who you're related to. It's who shows up, who cares, who's there when it matters. She patted my hand with tears in her eyes. "That's the truth, dear. That's the truth. So here's what I want to leave you with today. If you're in a situation like I was, being used, being taken for granted, being treated like an ATM by people who claim to love you, please hear this. It's not your job to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. It's not selfish to have boundaries. It's healthy. It's not cruel to say no. It's honest. It's not wrong to prioritize your own children and your own peace. It's necessary. I wasted years of my life feeling guilty for not giving enough, not doing enough, not being enough for my family. But the truth is, I was always enough. They just didn't appreciate it. They took my generosity for granted and mistook my kindness for weakness. When I finally stood up for myself, when I finally said no more, they called me selfish. They called me cruel. They threatened to cut me off. But you know what happened? The relationships that were real survived. The relationships that were based only on what I could provide fell apart. And that's exactly how it should be. Not everyone is going to understand your boundaries. Not everyone is going to respect them. Some people will push back hard, will try to manipulate you into going back to the old pattern. Stand firm anyway. Because on the other side of those boundaries is peace, is freedom, is the ability to build a life based on genuine connection rather than obligation and guilt. Your worth is not measured by what you can give to others. Your value is not determined by how many problems you can solve or how much money you can provide. You are worthy of love simply because you exist. Your children deserve to see you valued and respected. and your future self will thank you for the boundaries you set today. I think about that Sunday morning a year ago, standing in my kitchen, reading that text demanding $10,000 while my son who had just been through surgery, was asking for pancakes. That was my line in the sand. My moment of clarity. What's yours going to be? Maybe you're experiencing it right now. Maybe you're sitting there watching this, feeling that sick recognition in your stomach because you're living this same pattern. Maybe you've been the responsible one, the fixer, the ATM for years, and you're exhausted. If that's you, I want you to know. Change is possible. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. There will be pushback and guilt trips and people telling you you've changed, as if that's a bad thing. But on the other side of that discomfort is a life where you're not constantly anxious about the next crisis, where you can plan for your own future, where your children see you standing up for yourself, where relationships are based on mutual care rather than one-sided extraction. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Would I do it again? Without hesitation. Do I miss the old family dynamics? Not even a little bit. Because the family I'm building now, with Mason, with real friends, with people who genuinely show up, is worth so much more than the family I was assigned by birth. Money cannot buy family loyalty. I learned that the hard way. I gave $54,000 over 10 years and couldn't buy a single hospital visit when my son needed surgery. But you know what money can buy? Security for your children, opportunities for their future, peace of mind, freedom from constant anxiety. That's where my money goes now, and I've never been happier. So if you're facing a similar situation, if you're being pressured to give more than you should, if you're exhausted from being everyone's solution while having no one to turn to yourself, I give you permission, not that you need it, but I give it anyway to say no, to set boundaries, to protect your peace, to prioritize your children, to build the life you deserve rather than the one everyone else expects from you. Your family might not understand. They might get angry. They might try to guilt you or manipulate you or threaten you. Stand firm anyway, because the relationships worth having will survive your boundaries. And the ones that don't survive, they were never real to begin with. Thank you for watching my story. Thank you for staying until the end. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Someone who's struggling with family boundaries. Someone who's being taken advantage of. Someone who needs permission to put themselves first. Leave a comment below telling me your story. Have you had to set difficult boundaries with family? How did you handle it? What was the outcome? I read every comment, and I promise you, you're not alone in this struggle. And remember, you deserve relationships that add to your life, not drain it. You deserve to be valued, not just used. You deserve peace. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival, it's self-respect, and it's the greatest gift you can give yourself and your children. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. And remember, family is supposed to show up. If they don't, that's on them, not you.